Usually when we start these deep dives, I have a little ritual. I pour some coffee, I crack my knuckles, I skim the abstract.
Right, getting in the zone.
Yeah, exactly. And I try to come up with a clever metaphor to set the stage. Something about finding a needle in a haystack.
Or navigating a stormy sea.
Navigating a stormy sea, exactly. But today, the source material literally punched me in the face before I even finished the first page.
It was certainly a direct opening.
Direct. I mean, it was aggressive. I opened
Mhm.
the documentation for Enterprise Red's services, specifically looking at their use of the Cyberverse platform and the CyberOps module.
Mhm.
And the very first thing I see, bold text, front and center, is the slogan, F the chaos, command the mission.
It definitely grabs your attention, doesn't it?
It really does. I mean, we read a lot of corporate white papers, and
Yeah.
usually it's all, synergy and paradigm shifts and really polite, sanitized language.
Yeah, lots of corporate jargon.
Right. So to see an expletive right there in the value proposition, it felt strangely appropriate.
I agree completely. It feels appropriate because if you talk to anyone working in a security operations center right now, or SOC chaos is probably the polite word for their daily reality.
And that's really the mission for this deep dive. We're looking at the state of modern cybersecurity operations in early 2026. We're unpacking this phenomenon called tool sprawl.
A huge issue right now.
It really is. And we're analyzing how Enterprise Red's approach, using platforms like CyberOps, is trying to shift the industry from just hoarding data to actually, well, commanding a mission.
Right. Because the assumption for the last decade has basically been if you buy enough sophisticated software, you're safe.
Just throw money at the problem.
Exactly. If you have the budget, you buy the tool.
Yeah.
But what we're finding in this research is that having too much software might actually be the very thing that is killing your security posture.
So if you're listening to this right now and you feel like you are drowning in data but starving for actual direction, this deep dive is for you.
We're going to tear apart the stats, look at the solution Enterprise Red is proposing with CyberOps, and see if it actually holds water.
Let's do it. So, we have to start with the landscape. Why did they feel the need to use that kind of language in their marketing? How bad is it out there, really?
It is overwhelming.
Yeah.
And we aren't just saying that anecdotally. The source material highlights a statistic that honestly stopped me in my tracks.
Which one was that?
They cite that 88% of security professionals report having data blind spots.
88%.
Nearly 9 out of 10.
Let's just pause on that for a second. That means 9 out of 10 security leaders, the people responsible for protecting customer data, intellectual property, bank accounts they know, for a fact that there are parts of their network they literally cannot see.
Exactly. They are flying blind. Imagine you're a pilot, and you come over the intercom and say, "Hey folks, just so you know, I can't see 10% of the sky today, but enjoy the flight."
I'd be asking for a parachute immediately.
Right. But in security, that is somehow the standard. And we have to define what a blind spot actually is here.
It's not just a server in a dark room somewhere.
No, it's shadow IT. It's that marketing app someone installed without asking. It's an unpatched IoT device in the lobby, or a server that wasn't decommissioned properly.
And that is exactly where the attackers hide. They live in those gaps.
They do.
And the irony, based on the documents we have here, is that these blind spots aren't caused by a lack of tools.
Quite the opposite, actually. This brings us directly to the tool sprawl problem. The data shows that 78% of security leaders say that tool sprawl is actually slowing down their threat mitigation.
Because they're just constantly toggling between screens.
It's way worse than just toggling. The source material notes that many security teams are currently managing between 45 and 83 different tools.
Wait, hold on. 83.
83 different security tools.
Matt, I can't even wrap my head around the logistics of that. I get stressed out when I have too many browser tabs open.
Imagine having 83 different dashboards.
It's insane.
Think about the cognitive load on the team. You have a firewall dashboard, an endpoint protection dashboard, a cloud dashboard, an identity dashboard.
And they all have different logins.
Different logins, different user interfaces, different query languages.
And they're all screaming at you at the same time.
All of them are generating alerts, beeping, flashing red. If you are an analyst trying to correlate an attack vector, trying to figure out if that weird email is connected to that weird server login.
You have to do it manually.
Yes, you have to manually pull log data from tool A, cross-reference it with vulnerability data in tool B, check the user identity in tool C.
And by the time you've actually connected those dots,
The attacker has already moved laterally, They have escalated privileges, and they are gone.
It's like trying to assemble a puzzle, but the pieces are scattered across 83 different rooms in your house, and the lights are off in half of them.
That is a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
And this leads to what the report calls the manual labor drain. The sources indicate that 54% of security teams spend the majority of their time on manual reporting and coordinating data between these different tools.
So you hire these brilliant, really expensive security analysts, people who are highly trained to hunt threats and think like hackers, and you basically turn them into data entry clerks.
You turn them into human data routers. They aren't hunting. They are literally copy-pasting data into spreadsheets.
Which totally explains the massive burnout rate in the industry right now.
Exactly. It leads to alert fatigue, serious burnout, and ultimately missed threats. The synthesis here is clear. The industry is suffering from severe fragmentation.
Because we focus so much on buying the quote-unquote best tool for every tiny niche problem.
Right, and we created a monster of complexity in the process.
So enter Enterprise Red and the CyberOps platform. This is the solution we're analyzing today. They're pitching themselves as the antidote to this sprawl.
Yes.
But looking at the materials, I think it's really interesting how they define themselves by what they are not.
This is crucial for understanding their value proposition. In a crowded market, everyone claims to do everything. But CyberOps is very specific. They explicitly state they are not just a SIEM.
And for the listeners who might not live in the acronym SOUP, SIEM is Security Information and Event Management, right? Basically the central log collector.
Correct. A SIEM is basically like a giant digital vacuum cleaner. It sucks up logs from everywhere and just stores them.
Right.
But a SIEM often requires a ton of manual tuning to actually tell you what those logs mean. CyberOps says we aren't just that.
And they also say they aren't just an MDR, which is Managed Detection and Response.
Right. MDR usually implies outsourcing the watching of the screens to a third-party team. Now, CyberOps includes that, but they claim to be more.
So what do they actually call themselves then?
They call it the control layer.
Control layer.
Huh.
I mean, it sounds a little sci-fi. Let's break that down. Is this just another single pane of glass? Because I feel like every vendor since 2010 has promised a single pane of glass, and usually it's just a dashboard that breaks all the time.
That is a very fair skepticism.
Yeah.
The single pane of glass promise has been broken a lot in this industry.
Yeah.
But the difference here seems to be the direction of flow. A standard dashboard is usually read-only. It just shows you data.
Okay.
A control layer, as CyberOps defines it, is bidirectional. It's about unifying the stack.
Explain how that works in practice.
Instead of those 83 tools operating in complete silos, CyberOps is designed to ingest the signals from your entire environment. Every tool, every alert, every threat.
And present them in one place?
In a single operational view. But crucially, it ties every single signal to context.
Context really is the magic word here.
It absolutely is. The platform ties every signal to assets, to users, to weakness data, and to history.
So if an alert pops up, you don't just see, malware detected on IP address 192.168.1.5.
Which is useless information on its own.
Right. What am I supposed to do with that?
Exactly. Instead, you see malware detected on the CFO's laptop. This laptop hasn't been patched for the latest Windows vulnerability. This user fell for a phishing test last month, and here's a button to isolate the device immediately.
Okay, see, that changes the game entirely. That is the difference between data and direction.
Precisely. The source material has this great line. It says, most platforms give you more data. CyberOps gives you direction. It's specifically designed for immediate actions.
I love that distinction. We have enough data. We are drowning in data. We need someone or something to point and say, go fix that right now.
And that brings us to the core capabilities of the platform. The documentation outlines 5 pillars that operate through this unified control layer.
This is really the meat of the solution.
It is. If we really want to understand how this replaces the chaos, we need to walk through these 5 pillars.
Let's do it. Pillar number 1 is SecOps, or security operations.
This is the operational brain. It's where monitoring, case management, and those SIEM signals we talked about all feed into one unified place.
But the goal isn't just to store it all.
No. The phrase they use is allowing teams to act with intent, not instinct.
Intent, not instinct. That's a really interesting phrasing. Because usually we think of instinct as a good thing. Trust your gut.
But in security, instinct usually means panic. Or it means reacting to whoever is shouting the loudest at that moment.
Right, putting out the biggest fire you can see.
Exactly. If you're drowning in noise, you're reacting purely on gut feeling. With a centralized brain, you're acting based on hard evidence. You aren't guessing which fire is biggest. The data actually tells you.
Okay, that makes sense. Moving to pillar number 2, vulnerability management. Now, traditionally, this is just a massive spreadsheet of unpatched software that the IT team completely ignores, right?
Sadly, yes. You run a scanner, you get a 500-page PDF of problems, you email it to IT, they hate you for it, and nothing ever gets fixed.
So how does CyberOps change that dynamic?
They describe their approach as a live map of weaknesses.
How is that practically different from the PDF report?
It ranks vulnerabilities by real risk across your entire estate.
Right.
So it's not just saying, hey, this piece of software is old.
Okay.
It's saying this software is old, it's on a critical server that is facing the public internet, and there is an active exploit kit being used by hackers right now to target it.
So it actually prioritizes for you. It tells you what to fix first based on what is genuinely dangerous, not just what has a scary-sounding CVE name.
Which is huge for efficiency. You stop wasting your team's time patching things that don't actually matter in the grand scheme of things.
That's incredibly practical. Pillar 3 is immediate actions, and this sounds like the actual control part of the control layer.
It is. This is all about speed. The source material says when the heat rises, the control layer responds first. It uses high-impact responses based on live telemetry.
So we're talking about automation here.
Automation, but integrated automation. Instead of waiting for a human to see the alert, log in, find the device, and manually click suspend.
Which takes time.
Time you don't have. The system can take protective measures instantly. If ransomware starts encrypting files at 2 a.m., you don't want to wait for the analyst to wake up and make coffee. You want the machine to cut the network connection right then and there.
Right. Which brings us to pillar 4, managed detection and response, or MDR. They call this an always-on command extension.
This is vital for teams that aren't massive enterprises. Not every company can afford a 24/7 internal SOC with 50 people on staff.
Most can't, honestly.
Exactly. So this pillar combines the automated correlation we just discussed with human expertise from the Cyberverse team.
So there are actual human beings involved in this step.
Yes, but because the tool is doing the heavy lifting of sorting the data and cutting out the noise, the humans are only looking at what truly matters.
Making them way more effective.
Exactly. The key benefit here is clarity. The system isolates threats and escalates only the real stuff. It basically bakes clarity into every single alert.
So you aren't getting a phone call at 3 in the morning for a false positive.
Precisely. If that phone rings, you know for a fact it's real.
That is a huge quality of life improvement. And finally, pillar 5, which I actually found really unique in this context, is pen testing or penetration testing.
Yes.
Because usually this is a completely separate thing, right? You hire a consultancy once a year, they try to hack you, they give you a thick report, and then they leave.
Correct. It's almost always an isolated engagement, a point-in-time assessment. The problem is, the day after they leave, someone on your team changes a firewall rule.
And suddenly you're vulnerable all over again.
But you won't know that for another 12 months until the next test.
So how does Enterprise Red handle it within CyberOps?
Within this platform, testing is part of the coordinated engagement. It's fully integrated into the control layer.
So it's a continuous process.
It implies a much tighter feedback loop. Because the testing data is living right alongside your active defense data, you get way fewer false positives and you reveal the true impact of a vulnerability.
It's not just theoretical anymore.
Right. It becomes a continuous cycle. Find a weakness, fix the weakness, verify the fix, repeat.
That feels like a real game changer. It stops security from being a simple checklist item where you say, oh yeah, we did our pen test back in June, and makes it a continuous process of actual hygiene.
And that continuous process is essential for what the industry calls operational resilience.
Which naturally brings us back to the human element. We touched on burnout earlier. Even with all this incredible automation, there are still real people involved in running this.
Absolutely.
The source mentions there are 24/7 cyber operators on hand, and they even highlight a security assistance 24/7 emergency hotline.
It is definitely comforting to know there's a red phone you can pick up, so to speak. But the real human benefit here isn't just having a hotline to call when things go wrong.
What is it then?
It's about fundamentally reducing the lift for your internal team.
Meaning your existing team can just do more with less.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Look, skilled cybersecurity professionals are incredibly hard to find, and they are very expensive to hire.
There's a massive talent shortage.
There is. So if you can use a control layer to automate the grunt work, the data pasting, the basic alert triage, you are effectively giving your existing team superpowers.
You're freeing them up to do the high-level work they were actually trained to do.
Yes, you're allowing them to deliver significantly stronger security without having to double your headcount.
It goes right back to that blind spot elimination we talked about at the top of the show, too. If the system is tying every signal to assets and users automatically, nothing hides.
Nothing gets lost in the shuffle.
You aren't relying on a human analyst to magically remember that server X is hypercritical because Bob from IT sent an email about it 3 years ago. The system just knows.
And that leads directly to high-fidelity prioritization. Yeah. Knowing exactly what needs action right now, what is building momentum for next week, and what is quietly opening attack paths in the background. It just removes the guesswork.
I want to pivot a bit to validation. Because, all of this sounds amazing on paper or on a deep dive discussion, but does it actually work? Is this just a visionary roadmap, or is it real right now?
Oh, it's definitely real. The source material mentions the platform is trusted by over 1,000 businesses.
Wow, okay. That's a significant footprint.
It is. And the customer voices highlighted in the documents really echo this whole clarity theme we've been discussing. We have a quote from Benedict Jones, who is a CEO.
What did he say?
He calls it an awesome single pane of glass that provides actionable insights at a glance.
And I know we were a little skeptical of that term earlier.
We were, but coming from a CEO, that term actually means something different. CEOs don't care about log parsing or seam tuning. They care about one question: are we safe? Yes or no?
Right. And if the tool gives him that answer at a quick glance, it's doing its job perfectly.
Exactly. Then you have Bruno Carvalho, a risk and compliance manager. He notes that the platform was incredibly easy to use and made it simple to track testing progress over time.
That's the control layer in action right there, making the invisible visible and actually trackable for management.
It validates that the integration of these 5 pillars actually works in practice out in the real world.
And to ground this conversation in the here and now, because we were recording this in late February 2026, the platform seems to be very much alive and constantly updating. The documentation points to some very specific, timely updates.
Absolutely. This isn't just stagnant software that was built 3 years ago and left alone. There are 2 recent updates that really caught my eye in the materials.
Let's hear them.
First, looking ahead just a couple of months to April 27th, 2026. We have the Danzel update.
Danzel, what exactly is that?
It's a brand new set of Cyber Essentials questions that have been approved by the NCSC and DSIT.
And for our international listeners who might not know, that is the UK government's standard framework for basic security hygiene.
Correct. And the fact that the Cyberverse platform is already flagging this, naming the upcoming update and preparing its users for it, shows that it actively stays ahead of compliance changes.
So as a user, you aren't going to be blindsided by new regulations coming down the pipe.
Right. The platform is already baking those changes in for you.
That's great.
And then looking backward just a couple of weeks, we had Microsoft Patch Tuesday for February 2026.
Oh boy. Which was a big one, if I recall.
A massive one. 58 different security updates addressed.
58.
58 distinct holes in the software that needed immediate plugging. This perfectly illustrates the constant flow of threats we're dealing with.
Yeah.
Every single month, Microsoft, Adobe, Cisco, they all release huge lists of things that are broken and actively being exploited.
So if you are a security team trying to manage those 58 updates across 1,000 remote devices, and you are using 83 different security tools to do it.
Good luck. Honestly, you are going to miss one. It's human nature.
And that one single update you miss is exactly the one the hackers will find and use to get in.
And suddenly, you are right back to the chaos.
We're back to the chaos.
But if you have a control layer that automatically maps those 58 new updates to your specific assets, tells you exactly which ones are critical for your unique environment, and maybe even automates the patching process for you.
Then that is literally commanding the mission.
Exactly.
So as we wrap this up, what does this all mean for the listener? We've gone from the really aggressive F the chaos slogan to a pretty sophisticated, grounded argument for consolidation.
I think the main takeaway is that the era of best-of-breed point solutions might finally be ending, or at least it's evolving rapidly.
Right, because for a long time, the strategy was just buy the best tool for every hyper-specific problem. Buy the best antivirus, the best firewall, the best email scanner.
But the friction between those disconnected tools eventually became the biggest risk to the organization.
The gaps between the...
Precisely. The integration of the tools is now arguably more important than the tools themselves. The summary here is really the journey from chaos to clarity.
Shifting from having 83 disjointed voices screaming at you to having one single source of cyber truth.
Yes. And for our listeners, whether you are a CISO holding the budget purse strings, or you're just a frontline analyst trying to keep your sanity on a Tuesday, why should you care about this shift?
Because we live in a world of strictly limited resources. You have limited budget, you have limited time, and most importantly, you have limited mental bandwidth.
Clarity is the ultimate efficiency hack in this industry. It's not just about getting real security visibility, it's about sheer survival.
You cannot defend what you cannot see.
And you cannot defend effectively if you're exhausted from fighting your own user interfaces all day long.
It really is about sanity, just as much as it is about security.
It truly is.
So here's a thought I want to leave everyone with as we close out. We talked earlier about that specific phrase, intent versus instinct.
It's a very powerful concept.
It is. If your security strategy right now is purely reactive, if you are basically just swatting at flies because you are constantly drowning in noise and alerts, are you actually secure?
Or are you just busy?
Right. That's the provocative question you need to ask yourself. Being busy feels like work. It feels like you're playing defense. But if that busyness isn't strategically directed, it's just noise.
True security is quiet, it's organized, and it's highly intentional.
Command the mission. I think I finally get why they put it in bold letters right on page 1 now. It's a call to action to stop letting your tools run you and start finally running your tools.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
All right, well, that is it for this deep dive into Enterprise Red's approach with the Cyberverse platform. Hopefully, we helped you cut through a bit of the noise today and maybe inspired you to go look for those hidden blind spots in your own stack.
Stay secure out there, everyone.